The woman you're looking at is named Iraena Asher, and she was a beautiful 25-year-old model and teacher from Auckland, New Zealand. Though not very well known internationally, she remains pretty well known locally, and unfortunately, it's not for the best reasons. See, in mid-October 2004, Iraena went missing under some extremely odd and suspicious circumstances, and she's actually never been seen since. I'll tell you everything, but as usual, let's get into the backstory first. On October 10th of 2004, the day before she would be declared missing, Iraena was hanging out at her new boyfriend's place in a seaside village called Piha. We don't know exactly what went on here. All we know is that she would at some point leave his place and end up calling 111, which is the emergency response line number in New Zealand.
Iraena?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what's going on, please?
I don't feel safe in this house because
Yes?
there's a guy here who I'm very afraid of.
After the dispatchers picked up around 9 p.m., Iraena claimed she was in danger, and although the police easily could have sent out an actual police car, they for some reason opted to send a taxi, claiming that people sometimes obtain a free ride home in a police car after making false emergency calls. So they sent her a taxi, and the driver went to a completely wrong street on the other side of the city. And of course, because of this, she was never seen or picked up by this cab driver. The poor way that the dispatchers handled this call more than likely dictated her outcome, and if they had just sent a patrol car, I almost certainly wouldn't be sitting here telling you this story. But life isn't always simple, so let's continue. Later that night, two friends in Piha who lived together named Julia Woodhouse and Bobby Carroll spotted Iraena naked and could tell she was clearly in distress, so they offered her a place to stay. They took her in for several hours, and they claimed she seemed anxious but was also kind of suspicious. They also said that she seemed like she was coming off of. So they let her have a shower and even helped her remove her nail polish because she said it was bothering her, and eventually they laid her down to go to sleep. After about 5 minutes though, at 1:10 a.m. they heard her leave, and after hearing this, Bobby tried chasing her down. At the same time, Julia's son would call the police. The attempt at chasing her failed, and they saw that she left behind a dressing gown, which just made things even more worrisome. But nonetheless, thanks to Julia's son, the police were now called and on the hunt. The last two people to see Iraena alive were a couple named Zachary Nixon and Simone Ross, who were outside walking their dog at around 1:30 a.m. They said they saw her kneeling down, kissing the ground, and talking to a streetlight before running off into the darkness. They said it looked like some weird ritualistic thing, and apparently the Zach guy wanted to take a video of it, but obviously he decided not to because she was naked. It also was apparently so dark that they couldn't even see the surf on the beach, and their dog tried running after her but with no luck. Weirded out about this, they went home, had a drink, and talked about it before falling asleep. Despite claiming to hear a helicopter over top of their house about 30 minutes after this, they never called the police. We also know that the volunteer fire brigade sent him a text, but he never responded. And the next day on his way to work, he would finally answer a call from the police. Now, how did they know to text him and call him specifically? I honestly can't find an answer in any of the sources I read, so I have no idea about that part. Maybe it was an automated text to people in the area, and after he answered in the AM, they called. I honestly don't know. When asked why they never went to the police, the couple just said that she didn't appear to be particularly upset, and they also remarked at how common skinny dipping was in Piha. In Simone's own words, she said, "I did wonder how she wasn't freezing. I wondered if she was under the influence. The fact that she had no clothes on made me wary of frightening her or surprising her. She had a private thing going on." And that's it. Sadly, Iraena Asher has never been seen since then. In the aftermath, people were critical of how all three parties had handled the event. Most notably, the police department, as if they had handled the initial call correctly, there's a good chance none of this ever would have happened. Julia and Bobby, the two who gave her a place to stay, were incredibly upset to find out that people were critical of them. Julia Woodhouse was reported as saying, "I felt quite shocked when the coroner said we had failed Iraena. It wasn't us. We weren't the people who failed Iraena. We gave her warmth and kindness, and we gave her anything she wanted. Our priority was to keep her safe. We had no idea until we saw that dressing gown on the road of what was going to unfold. We made good, considerate decisions. The suggestion that we may be culpable at all is nothing short of despicable." Iraena's father stated that she suffered from bipolar disorder, and when she was having an episode she was very against him, but it would be unlike her to behave this way or have taken anything. They did say that she was good at hiding things though. The general consensus here is that she was experiencing some sort of episode related to her illness, and that alone, or that combined with something she took, led her to go for a swim, where she unfortunately got pulled out too far and couldn't make it back. This is just a leading theory, but obviously there are many others. It's also the conclusion that the police department came to during their inquest 8 years later. Sadly, Iraena still hasn't been seen since. And in a completely strange twist of events that just makes things even weirder, it turns out that almost 20 years after her passing in December of 2022, Irena's father Michael Asher went missing on the exact same beach, and sadly, he was found a month later in an area of bush and was deemed to have had a heart attack. Regardless of if there was a common factor between any of these, I hope the family and everyone involved with this tragedy has since found peace, and maybe someday we'll get an answer. This entry has very limited information on it, but honestly, most people haven't heard of this before, and it has photos to go with it, so it'll be fun to quickly cover. On November 10th, 1994, a security guard working at a casino in Las Vegas was working his shift as usual. He was making the rounds, keeping an eye on things, escorting people out of the building if they were getting too belligerent, and closely monitoring the CCTV footage for certain tables. As most of you probably know, casinos are constantly trying to spot card counters or people who are otherwise doing things that they object to, so having an elaborate system of cameras monitoring the players is obviously a must. On this day, however, things would take an unexpected turn for the security guard, and not in a way he would have ever expected. Just after 7 p.m., he noticed what he refers to as 3 beings entering and sitting down at a table while he was watching the CCTV feed. He describes them as having huge bald heads and wearing robes, and further explains that despite seeing them distinctly on this footage, all other people that were around them paid no attention to them. It's like the 3 of them just went completely unnoticed, or that the security guard was the only one who could see them. At one point, we can even see one of them look directly at the camera despite the fact that the camera was intentionally hidden. The guard cited that a man wearing black later came in at the request of the owners and confiscated the full quality footage. But thankfully, he actually took a couple pictures of it beforehand. Here's some still photos that the security guard captured from the footage. Now, if you ask me, I think this one has a ton of holes in it. I'm a pretty big skeptic when it comes to this stuff, but it still is just a lot of fun to me. It's the type of stuff I'd obsess over on old YouTube when I was a kid, and I absolutely would have believed every bit of this story 15 years ago. But I'm a grown adult now, so allow me to do the Y-Files thing and try to dismantle it. When I read about this, all I could notice is that it just has all the tropes of classic faked alien footage. We have the gray beings, the man in black conveniently confiscating the footage, and just the absolute lack of important details. Like, for example, what's the name of the casino and what was the security guard's name? Can you give any physical details of the man in black beyond just his outfit? There's supposedly interviews out there, but I couldn't find them. That one could be on me, but I tried. Not only that, to me these literally just look like people who are being sort of skewed from the angle of the camera, or maybe even folks who just have some sort of condition. If these are aliens, they look quite a bit like human beings, and I'm just not compelled to believe that beings from so far away would waste their time sitting in on a poker game in Vegas just to spook some random security guard. That's just my take though, and this still does remain a much lesser known unsolved mystery. I'm curious to hear what you guys think of these photos. In June of 2022, a man and his daughter, also both from Auckland, New Zealand, were at a beach visiting some beloved family members and spending some quality time together. Things were good and by all means going as planned, but this would all change on one night when the family started to smell gas and smoke. Confused, they rushed outside to see where the smell was coming from, and they would immediately find their neighbor's camper bus or house bus engulfed in flames. Their first concern was obviously that there may be people inside, but fortunately, that was quickly ruled out when they also saw their neighbor outside and he reassured them that no one was in there. It's unclear as to what caused the initial fire, but thankfully, there wasn't someone inside while this was happening, or at least that's how it seemed in the beginning. Craig Meek, the father who was visiting, began filming and things quickly took a different direction. See, the way this bus was positioned while on fire was completely unfavorable. It was directly beside a house, and the owner was concerned that a gas cylinder he had stored on the bus was going to explode, because if it did, it would almost certainly spread beyond the vehicle and onto the house. They continue to film and document the fire when suddenly, the bus's lights are seen turning on and off. And just as a shrub beside the bus catches on fire and the flames are really about to spread, we can see it slowly move across the road and stop at a nearby tennis court, which was said by the New Zealand Herald to be one of the only places on the street where a house was not threatened. It's almost as though the bus had been intentionally moved as so to not spread the flames any further, and everyone viewing it was thrown back. The family said it just felt paranormal or like someone was in control of it, and obviously being there in person is different than just watching it. The father claims that although he knows it was likely just a mechanical fault, the sequences of events were just very strange and the entire thing had felt surreal. And if you're anything like me, you would immediately go towards the mechanical fault theory. I don't know, I just don't think this one's that wild, but there's another detail to this that I found out and it makes the whole thing a lot creepier. The owner of the bus said he misses the good old days that he spent with his wife on that bus, and he claimed that she would be on it. Confused, the father inquired, and it was at this point that he found out that the bus owner's wife had passed away 3 years prior. The location that she passed away was aboard that very same bus. We could hear the owner on video suggesting that it actually may be her doing. He says, "I wonder if it's my wife taking it away. Probably didn't want the neighbor to burn down." It's crazy how much more compelling the paranormal angle becomes when we hear that detail, as it is true that the sequence of events just seem a little too convenient to be a coincidence, but crazier things like this have happened. A lot more people in the comments speculate that the bus was left in gear and then the starter motor somehow shorted. Does this account for the turning? No, but maybe the steering wheel was still turned a bit, so when it began to roll, it simply completed the turn that had already begun. No matter what the reason is, it's a compelling mystery and the timing of events is very lucky. What do you guys think? I already mentioned this in a community post briefly, but due to some hard work from Reddit user illustrious Crest9774, we actually got to the bottom of the unidentified media case in my previous video. I'm surprised it happened so fast, but it still was not easy at all, and you can barely find anything on this, even with the information I'm going to give you. I'll briefly summarize it here and put a link to the full articles below. First off, the video was absolutely real. It occurred on July 10th of 1993, not 1994, and it was indeed in North Carolina. The man's name, Terry McCarran. The backstory is just really sad for the most part. The man was disabled in a tricycle accident as a kid, and as a result, he grew up to have an IQ of around 62. Leading up to the video, he was upset that his dad and brother did some plumbing repairs without him, and as a result, he grabbed a weapon and sat down on the couch with it. His brother then called the police just in case, and there's even 911 transcripts to go with it. When the police arrived, it resulted in Terry becoming far more offensive, and essentially, it turned into what looked like a hostage situation, but the family denies was actually one. They even cut off his electricity to make him come outside. Many officers from the force knew Terry and knew the issues that he had. With that being said, I believe the police handled it well in the very last moment, as he did level the gun and was previously threatening them, but still, it makes me wonder what they could have done differently before this all happened. The family went after the police department in the years following, but it was ruled in favor of the police. We have the address and pictures of the house, which obviously I'm not going to air out here, but it looks to have had renovations since, and I just found this more useful to actually verify that this was the place, and it is. Thank you so much again to everyone who put all their hard work into this. It's satisfying to see that we finally have a name to put to it. Right now I'm working on a video about a much deeper rabbit hole, and it's likely going to be much more difficult to solve. That's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking or subscribing, but if not, that's okay too. I upload 2 to 3 videos like this every week, so maybe I'll win you over next time. Also, a special shout out to all of my patrons. A lot of work goes into these, and I'm grateful that I've already developed such a cool community, especially in such a short period of time. I'm actually super pumped to see how far we can take this.